This is the car battery that I use to store the energy generated by my solar panel. Now, this is probably the worst battery you could buy because, as a car battery, it's designed to deliver high current to start your car and then to be immediately recharged by your alternator. It's not designed to run devices overnight and be deeply discharged, then to be charged up again the next day by a solar system. So, how bad is this battery? Well, let's find out. Now, you can see here that it's a 12 volt 36 amp hour battery. I've had the battery on float charge for a couple of days now to make sure I can max out the voltage. I've disconnected the solar panel about half an hour ago, give it some time to settle down, and you can see that the voltage is 13.17 volts. So if we round that up to 13.2 and then add 12.2, because you shouldn't run a lead acid battery lower than 12.2, and then divide that figure by 2, that'll give us an average of 12.7 volts. Now it's a 36 amp hour battery, so that means we've got 457.2 watt hours, but you can only use half of that, so divide that by 2. So we should get a usable power of 228.6 watt hours. I'll be using this power meter to measure how much power we use, and I've connected it to his own power supply so that when the load switches off, we don't lose all of our data. I'll be using these 3 power packs on the left hand side and the battery charger with loads of high capacity cells to dump the power from the main battery. Okay, so with the load output, and we will switch that to always on. So we'll just check that that is working. Yep, 25 watts going out. Okay, so that's all working. So now what we'll do is we shall change the load output from always on to user defined algorithm 1. Now if you look at the bottom of the whitish panel there, it says load switch load voltage level 12.2 volts. So what's going to happen is the battery will keep on running until it gets to 12.2 volts, and then the charge controller will switch off the load, and we'll be ready to check to see how many watt hours we managed to get out of the battery. Okay, just thought I'd give you a bit of an update. So we started this experiment at 10 to 4 and it's now 20 past 7, so it's been 3.5 hours. 20 minutes ago I had to disconnect one of the battery packs because the voltage was down to 12.22 and I didn't want it to drop below 12.2. It went up to 12.27 then for a little while, but it's creeped back down again to 12.24 as you can see. So I'm going to have to disconnect another battery pack in a minute. So far, if you look at the display on the left bottom, there are 6.6 amp hours we've had so far and 81.7 watt hours. So really not very good. To give you some perspective of how much power that is, this is the power pack or power bank as they call them that I disconnected, and if you look here, the capacity is 82.8 watt hours. So about the same as what the car batteries just produced. Okay, it's nearly 8 o'clock in the morning the next day, and the load is still on. In order to eke out every last bit of power, I reduced the load last night by disconnecting everything except for the battery charger, and that's enabled it to keep going all night long. You can see that the battery voltage has dropped to 12.12, which is below the 12.2 cutoff point, but this is because when you've got a battery under load, you get a voltage sag. So if you actually switched off the load now, the voltage of the battery would probably be over 12.2, which is why I think it's still switched on. But I'm expecting to switch off any minute now, really. And there we are. It's switched off the load, and as you can see, the voltage has gone back up to 12.31. Now there's no voltage sag. So let's look at the power meter and see what we got out of it. So here's the result. 12.943 amp hours or 160.3 watt hours. So for my next project, I'm going to be building batteries out of these old laptop batteries. So stay tuned to see the results of that.